Hello, everyone. So it's time for the negative externalities of consumption diagram. Last week, I did negative externalities of production. This week, I'm going to focus on negative externalities as well, but negative externalities of consumption. These negative externalities of consumption happen when the consumption of a good or service generates an external cost that society has to bear. So, for example, if I'm standing in a room and there are other people in the room and I start smoking in that room, my consumption of that cigarette is harming the people in the room. There's an external cost that they have to bear, which is secondhand smoke, okay, or passive smoking. All right. So sometimes when we consume, excuse me, sometimes when we consume certain things that can um, generate an external cost on the people around us. Okay. So in this case, the split is on the demand side, unlike last week where the split was on the supply side. So remember, the supply curve is always the MPC curve. So here, the MPC, which is supply, is equal to the MSC. There's one supply curve. Okay. And the demand curve is always the MPB. So this is the demand based on the marginal private benefit, the benefit to the consumer consuming the product. However, there's an external cost that is generated by this consumption and is imposed on the rest of society. So the benefit to society is actually lower than the benefit to the individual consumer. The MSB curve, the marginal social benefit curve, is lower, is below the MPB. Why? Because the benefit to society is less than the benefit to the individual. The MSB is less than the MPB due to an external cost, example, secondhand smoke. Okay, so if somebody decides to smoke in your presence, they're not just harming themselves, they're also harming you if you are in their presence because of that secondhand smoke. Passive smoking has health problems as well. Okay, now the intersection of the MPC and the MPB gives us the market equilibrium, QE and PE. Okay, this is the actual outcome in the market. This is the quantity the market is producing, QE, and this is the price the market is charging. Okay, however, that price reflects the benefit to the consumer. Okay, now the intersection of MSC and MSB is what gives us allocative efficiency, the point of allocative efficiency. This is what the market should be producing. This is the quantity Q up that the market should be producing if it was allocatively efficient. And this is the price that truly reflects the benefit to society. You can see that P opt is less than PE. That means that the benefit to society, if you were to measure it, it would be less than the benefit to the individual consumer. So because QE is greater than Q opt, there's an over allocation of resources, but here it manifests as overconsumption. If you'll remember in last week's video, negative externalities of production, there was also an over allocation of resources, but it manifested as overproduction. So basically, over allocation of resources can lead to overproduction in the case of negative externalities of production, or overconsumption in the case of negative externalities of consumption. Okay, there's a welfare loss. Remember the trick that I taught you in the last video. The welfare loss triangle always points from QE to Q opt. So it's not this triangle here. That's wrong. It's the triangle I have shaded here from QE to Q opt. This is the welfare loss triangle. Okay, so the vertical distance is the external cost, and this triangle is the welfare loss, and QE is greater than Q opt. So there's an over allocation of resources that manifests as over consumption. Now, negative externalities of consumption are associated with demerit goods like cigarettes, like gambling, like alcohol. All of these goods generate an external cost on society. So, for example, gambling is addictive and can destroy a person's life and damage their family as well. Alcohol, okay, overconsumption of alcohol leads to more road accidents because of people that are drinking under the driving under the influence of alcohol. And so on and so forth. So demerit goods are goods and services that are not just harmful to the individual consuming them, but they're harmful to society as a whole. Demerit goods, if the government did not intervene in the market for demerit goods, they would naturally be overconsumed. Why? Because many of those demerit goods are addictive. Okay. And the demand for them tends to be very inelastic. Okay. So by default, demerit goods is just human nature. We like things that are not good for us. Sugar is the same thing, by the way. Okay. Sugar is very addictive and it's very harmful. It's leading to an obesity epidemic and the development of, I think it's type 2 diabetes. That's the type that you can get as an adult, not the type that you're born with. Anyway, overconsumption of sugar is linked to obesity, heart attacks, diabetes, so many health problems. Okay. So sugar is also a demerit good and sugar is addictive. If the government did not intervene in the market for, say, soda or soft drinks or sugary beverages, they would be overconsumed. QE, what the market is actually consuming, would be greater than what the market should be consuming. Okay. So let's quickly review. The MSB is less than the MPB. The benefit to society is actually less than the benefit to the individual consumer, the perceived benefit that the consumer gets from consuming. And this is because of the external cost, like secondhand smoke in the case of cigarettes, like more road or traffic accidents in the case of drunk driving that's associated with alcohol. So that leads to QE being greater than QOpt. There's an over-allocation of resources that manifests as overconsumption. This creates a welfare loss, which is this triangle here, pointing from QE to QOpt. And negative externalities of consumption are associated with demerit goods, which are goods and services that are harmful to the rest of society when they are consumed, like alcohol, cigarettes, gambling, etc. Okay. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments section below. Have a great one, and I'll see you next week when we move on to something a little bit more positive. We'll start doing the positive externalities videos. Bye.